Hello and welcome everyone, or welcome back. I'm Cathy Liska with the Center for Coaching Certification and Coach 123.
And I'm Pandora Ray, also from the Center for Coaching Certification and Coach 123.
Awesome. And we are super excited about our guest today and our conversation. So we're going to be talking about choosing a coach and working with a coach. And with us today is Dr. Nermeen Mustafa. And Nermeen, please introduce yourself to everyone.
Hello, good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Dr. Nermeen Mustafa. I'm an associate professor in business strategy, and I'm a certified coach. I would love to progress with this interview and explore coaching practices.
Excellent. Super excited. So, Nermeen, when you think about choosing a coach, what's important to you?
I think there's several things when choosing a coach. The obvious one is to look at the coach's experience, accreditations, and everything that we can tangibly actually assess and see. The second thing is going a step beyond that and perhaps having a test meeting just to see how you feel with the coach in terms of character, personality, and the chemistry, because at the end of the day, this is a partnership, and your coach is going to join you on this journey for whatever goals you're looking to achieve. And the third thing that I think most clients appreciate is empathy and listening skills, but also being able to adapt to various communication styles, because we all communicate very differently, and we all emphasize different points. For example, celebration or achievements, or for example, emotional connection, or anecdotal stories, and so on. So the ability and the skill of the coach to adapt to that is really important.
Excellent. So, when you think about interviewing different people and choosing a coach, how important is it for the coach to be like you?
I think the obvious answer would probably be that you would like the coach to be like you, but I think a better trigger for growth is probably having someone who complements your character. If you're very emotional, perhaps having a very rational and logical coach, and vice versa, could be actually worthwhile trying. Although it might not be comfortable at the beginning, if you bear with it, it can actually get you where you want to go. And it could help you see situations from a very different perspective as well, especially when you gain trust of the coaches on your side, and you're on the same team and they want what's best for you, and you begin to trust that this can be seen from various perspectives, especially in difficult times, when the client is going through a difficult situation and they're only seeing it from one perspective. So having a coach with a different personality, character, experience could really add a lot of value to the client as well. And it can actually open their eyes to, oh, there's different ways to see this same situation, or I associated meanings that were probably not there to that situation. So that really immensely helps, and I can tell you from personal experience. Of course, we all need to have a coach, a life coach, at some point in our lives, just to help us get further ahead. And so, from my experience, I can say that having coaches with different characters or outlooks on life has really helped me see situations from different perspectives. So that's a plus, I would say, more than anything else. But at the end of the day, a coach is very well trained to understand that there are different characters and that there are different communication styles. And an experienced coach is able to quickly adapt to that and speak the same language, if you like, as the client. So I think that these are my two key points on choosing a coach in terms of character.
I love that. It's as though there's more to it than what you see, and more to it than what you read on paper, more to it in your heart, what you're feeling too. Describe, Dr. Mustafa, the interview process. What happens?
So the interview process, ideally, you would perhaps meet with 2 or 3 coaches who you like. You like the experience, you like the qualifications, and you feel you can work with them. And during that, it would be a two-way conversation where the coach is asking a lot of questions, but also the client might be asking some questions too. I would love if a coach asked me, broad questions. For example, what does success mean to you? Or what does happiness look like to you? And that is a very big question in itself, because it gets the client to think for themselves, what does success look like for me, or what does happiness look like for me, and it will get them thinking in that, down that path. But also, if a coach asked me that at the beginning, in the very initial meeting, I would love that, because I would feel that that's amazing. This coach is trying to get to know me. They're trying to get to know my outlook on life. Um, and the nature of a question itself will give you a broad kind of blanket answer that that can quickly get you to understand who your client is as well. So I think it's a win-win if the coach really understands what the client wants, or where the client is coming from, which point of view, which perspective. That could really, really help the relationship go further. So those sort of questions, and obviously the client will have an opportunity to ask some questions, and get to know the coaching style, because at the end of the day, different coaches do have coaching styles. We're human, and we cannot completely park a personality to the side. When you're offering that service as a coach, it's you, it's your character, it's your personality, and that does come through in the coaching style. So as a client, you can assess that too. I also think that it's very good to point the client to what they should be looking for when assessing if they want to continue with a certain coach or the other. Perhaps give them a prep sheet or some indicator points. This is, look out for those points. So this is a criteria that you may want to look at when you're talking to 2 different coaches, for example.
Yeah. So what are the things you recommend putting on that prep sheet for the client?
I would say maybe an icebreaker question, such as, what's been your experience as a coach? What's your qualification? Do you specialize in a specific area like wellness and health, finance? Or, do you have a specific passion or expertise in a specific area? That would be a nice icebreaker, because then you're indirectly getting to know your coach their life and what they appreciate the most. And then other indicators, what qualifications they've got, when did they achieve it, and what sort of career did they have in the past? Because a lot of coaches I'm seeing are uh, amazing people who have had a long career in a specific area and then decided that actually I want to go into coaching. So that would be one aspect. And another area to look at for is, how did you feel when you were talking to the coach? Did you feel like you were heard? Did you feel like your points were acknowledged and understood? And if not, why not? Is it because of their body language, for example, or when you said a point, they just moved on to the next point without acknowledging and concluding that? So just reflecting on those points is another thing that perhaps would be an after exercise and a retrospective kind of exercise that the client can jot down a few points after the meeting as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really solid in terms of, for the client, hey, does the coach understand me? Are they paying attention to me? That kind of thing. And love your point also about kind of the icebreaker question, what experience and that kind of thing, to set that up. What other questions will a client want to consider asking a prospective coach?
I guess, the questions that come to mind can't really be asked because the coach is not allowed to share past situations or past examples due to confidentiality and so on. But I would be very tempted to ask my coach, has there been any big success stories that I can hear about, for example?
If I
Or
may jump in with that. So if you ask a coach about their big success stories, to me, this is actually great, because if the coach gives you something without it identifying who the person is, or even possible to identify who the person is, it gives you a sense of that success without them breaching confidentiality. If the coach actually gives you something that identifies somebody or is pretty personal information, then okay, that's probably not the coach for me, because they're not going to protect my confidentiality either.
exactly. And the second follow-up to that would be, have you had somebody with my kind of similar background or similar career or similar point in life that you've coached before? And, what's been their success story or what's been their challenges? And I would be very, very curious as a client to know those points. Um, and the other thing that I think, I've experienced myself is, and I didn't fully appreciate when I was testing out, a coach, is when a client says something and they revert to a personal story and they start talking about that for too long, it diverts the attention from the client to the personal story too much. And I didn't really feel that was of much value, especially when that went on for a while. Yeah, so I think there has to be a balance between the level of empathy and the level of both empathy and sympathy, and the level of solution orientated approach. Let's, ask questions that can get us closer to a plan or to takeaway points or action points that, of course, the client would come up with.
That's very,
Um,
Very wonderful. You're describing what happens in selecting a coach, and then that conversation is exploratory and ask it both ways. And as the process moves, you're talking very much about building trust and empathy and listening, and it is focused on the client, and the coach is there as a partner. And so the conversations change over time and build into something of, as in a rigorous coaching relationship. That's really great to hear the process. Say more about the process.
Okay, so about the process, I think it's very valuable to set expectations at the beginning, because from various conversations with people, I think people understand coaching very differently. They think that the coach will listen to the problem and just provide a prescription, you know, 1, 2, 3, or advice. And this is not what happens, because actually this is more, it's more damaging than anything, because you don't allow the coachee, or you don't allow the client to actually go through that the growth process, which is asking yourself difficult questions and reflecting on those questions and coming up with what points you want to pursue. And like I said in the beginning, success looks very different to everyone. And it's one of my favorite questions that I usually conclude with at the end of every semester with my students. And I love hearing their answers. What does success mean to you? And you see them light up, and just everybody has a very different answer, ranging from a big office with a high position and a high paying career somewhere in a city like New York, for example, all the way to having a very big family and 2 dogs, nature. Everybody has very different success pointers. And it all depends on our upbringing, on our culture, on our experiences, and what point in life we are at. So a coach cannot dictate their success factors
Right.
to the client. The client has to assess, what does success mean to you? Is it writing a book? Is it making more friends? Is it, what is it? Traveling the world? And they have to come up with that without any influence from the coach. And so I think setting the expectations right at the start is really important. And just, I wouldn't go as far as educating, but just orientating the client at the beginning of the coaching process, what it is and what it's not. The second thing I would say is also setting out a plan. So do we have a series of 6 coaching sessions towards that one short to medium term goal? And then we move on to the next one? Or would the client like to bring up their thoughts on the day and just have a different theme for every session? So, and obviously the coaching session itself, would it be planned so that the client is talking about the experience and then trying to reflect on that with the coach? Or are they saying, today I would like to talk about improving my quality of sleep, and then this session is about that, for example, and the coach would say, okay, so what do you hope to achieve by the end of this session? What would you be happy with if we, end the session in this way, for example? And so a series of questions are designed by the coach to ask and dig deep into there's a lot of psychology involved in that as well, because you're listening to the client, and some of the amazing coaches I've had, they would actually not just listen, they would look, and they would look at the body language, they would look at the facial expressions, they would look at what points did the client light up, at what point did the client feel stuck. So a lot of non-verbal communication as well is a brilliant cue to unpack all this. So I think this is, a lot of skills that the coach has and picks up on. And then at the end of the session, have we achieved what we set out to achieve in order to come up with a plan to improve your sleep? Just sticking with that example would be great. So I think, that's really important as well. So that's my view on the process, or some of my views on the process itself.
Yeah, nice. So if a client is going to go into a coaching relationship, they're investing certainly time and energy, whether they're paying themselves or an employer is paying, there's an investment of money. What's important for that client to know in advance?
I think, just to repeat a really important point, it's important for the client to know that a coach is not a psychologist, a coach is not an advisor, a coach is not a career advisor either. A coach is a partner that works with you to try and bring to the surface answers that you probably already know, and it tries to organize your thoughts around that as well. So they ask you the right questions, and they know how to dig deeper in order for you to come up with your own values and your own answers as well. So yeah.
I was going to say, you mentioned earlier that point on if the coach tells you the answers, it's really not helping you.
No, and I really love the analogy. I was watching a documentary once of, if those birds that hatch, if you try to help the bird to hatch out, actually it comes out as a disabled bird because you didn't allow it. And this is actually in the documentary, and it made me think. So the bird has to go through this process to learn and to grow and maybe to strengthen some muscles.
Yeah, build the strength of the wing.
But by you thinking that you're helping, you're actually not, to the contrary. So robbing the client from this opportunity to reflect, dig deep, ask questions, discover themselves really, and what's their values, what's important to them, what does success look like to them, and so on, is very, very important. And it can only come from within the person, from having these concentrated, in-depth conversations with the coach.
Yeah, no, that's such a fabulous point to highlight. So if you're willing to share, what have you gained from coaching?
Oh, coaching has been added an immense value, whether, organizing my day or career-wise, emotionally, on all fronts. It's been very, very helpful. And, you have somebody who's asking you questions that you haven't asked yourself. You haven't thought to ask yourself before. So, and that's brilliant. I used to really look forward to these sessions because it's like, oh, brilliant. I get to discover myself even more. So it's added a lot of value in terms of intangible aspects, but also very tangible aspects, things that I can actually quantify. Time usage optimization, health, things like career, at times reaching the point where I actually get to a block where I can no longer answer questions, and you suddenly discover that, oh, there's a way, you just don't see it, because the coach is somebody who's looking at the situation independently from outside, and they have a lot of experience as well. So when they ask a question, you think, wow, I thought this was a dead end, but it's not. There's this way to look at it as well. And so many aha moments in coaching sessions. I think everybody needs coaching. The highest performing people that we know around the globe have coaches.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that it's some cultures view it as something unnecessary, but I would say to the contrary. It's everybody needs coaching, no matter where you are in life. If you are successful, how do you maintain success, and where do you go from there, for example? So yeah, I think that's really, really important, and it's added so much value to me.
That's fabulous. Pan, what does that bring up for you?
Oh, lots of things. I have a closing questions, but
Go ahead. Yeah.
When's your first available appointment for our first coaching session?
Well, I would love to. I mean, I would love to continue. As you know, I've done my coaching certification, and I would love to continue with that, because it's what I do in education. I'm in higher education, and a lot of what I do is related to coaching as well. So it's not too far from that. And at one point, I think, I would like to do this. It's an amazing career. You help people grow. It's such a noble mission, I think.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's so fun to have someone that has had the depth of experience as a client and then is also aware on the side of the coach and doing the coaching. So that's awesome. Closing thoughts for everybody listening.
Okay, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
I think, we hear all these people advising you on investments and saving, and, how you spend your money. I think the best place that you can invest in is yourself. And the return on investment on coaching is immense. The ROI is just, and it's exponential, because you achieve small goals, and when you look back at 3 years ago with coaching, you think, I can't believe I've achieved this. And so it's worth every investment. And no matter where you are in your career or your life, I think it's such a great idea, to invest in yourself with coaching and choose a coach who becomes your partner.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. So for those of you listening, if you want to connect with Nermeen, she is here on LinkedIn. So you're welcome to reach out to her that way. Of course, Pandora and I are delighted to connect with all of you as well. We hope to have you come visit us at www.coachcert.com and www coach-123.com. So Nermeen, thank you very much for being here. Pam, thank you as always for being part of this conversation. Absolutely wonderful. And I'm guessing incredibly valuable for everybody that had a chance to hear you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity.